I am happy to introduce Lorena, who's joining us now to share her story. Welcome, Lorena.
Thank you very much. So, my story is a story about choice. I believe that all individuals need to have complete control over their body. I know my body is my expression to the world of who I am. So in order to have freedom and autonomy, I must have complete control over my body. So I have actually had 2 abortions, and the experience was night and day. I was 17 years old the first time I got pregnant. I had just ended an abusive relationship, and right when I found the courage to end it and walk away, I found out I was pregnant. I had been raised in a very religious household, so I was brought up to believe that abortion was wrong. I kept it a secret from most people, so I felt confused and very alone. But I realized that I was a young pregnant girl who hadn't even developed my own beliefs or values. All I knew is what I had been taught. And I decided that I couldn't be a parent. I wasn't ready. So my decision was to give my baby up for adoption. Then it came the point where I had to talk to my parents about my situation. And I got my story out between sobs. And at that point, my father informed me that I was going to have an abortion. I turned to my mother for support, and she looked down at the floor and said that she felt it was the best decision. And I think that was when the fabric of my reality began to come undone for me. I was confused and I felt powerless. And I tried to explain that I had a plan, but my father told me I had a choice. I could either have an abortion or I could get married. So after a night of a lot of yelling and crying, I surrendered. We only spoke about it one time afterwards, and that was 3 years later when I was 20 years old. And the reason that we did speak about it was because I had found out that my sister had an abortion while I was stationed in Oklahoma. And to think that her choice was taken from her the way my choice was taken from me infuriated me. So I called my sister to talk to her about it. And she told me that it was completely her choice, that nobody coerced her, my parents didn't put pressure on her. She came to the conclusion on her own that that was the best decision for her. So, and I wasn't upset or disappointed in my sister for making that choice for herself. My main concern was that it was her choice and that she was allowed to make it for herself. Fast forward over 10 years later, at 29, I was pregnant again. And I was giddy with happiness. And I have a beautiful 13-year-old son. I'm a proud mother, and he is the light in my soul. I love my baby. A few years later, again at 35, I had another pregnancy test come out positive. And this was the first time that birth control actually failed me. And I knew that I didn't want to have another child. And this time I chose for myself to have an abortion. For me, experiencing abortion that was my choice, I was grateful for that opportunity because it made all the difference. The staff at the abortion clinic was supportive and helpful and professional and kind. The procedure itself was quick and painless. I was able to leave the clinic with enough time to pick my son up from school. So I guess the reason I wanted to tell my story is because I think what's important to realize, and the reason that my first experience was traumatic, wasn't that I had an abortion, it's that I didn't have a choice. And I think that's what makes all the difference, and that's what we have to keep in mind. What we feel about abortion should be what we feel about abortion for ourselves as individuals. And that can change depending on where you are in your life. That can change. So I think it's important that we just ensure that people have the choice to express themselves and have complete control over their bodies. And to take away somebody's choice is dehumanizing, and it feels like assault, and it is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I was wanting to ask you if you saw any connections between yourself and then the situation that Jane Doe had also in trying to get access and exerting her autonomy.
Definitely. I think, well, I'm also from Texas, so I know the rules in Texas. I know the hoops that you have to jump through. But I think what I can relate to the most is that having your choice taken away from you, feeling powerless, either side of the spectrum, being a minor and kind of falling into that space where people feel that maybe you aren't able to make a choice for yourself and having to try to convince them that you are. So I think that's definitely how I see that my experiences relates to hers.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and being with us today. It's very impactful.
Thank you.